A St. Louis ICU doctor stepped up when New York Governor Andrew Cuomo begged healthcare workers across the country to help his state fight COVID-19. She went as soon as she could. News 4's Claire Kellett introduces us to the doctor who hopes sharing her experience highlights how serious COVID-19 is.
Dr. Mollie James boarded this empty plane to New York City last month. The St. Louis ICU physician went to volunteer on the front lines of COVID-19 at Flushing Hospital in Queens, one of the city's hardest hit boroughs.
Every doctor there that I've spoken with that has worked in this environment says it's the worst thing they've ever seen, and it's far beyond what anyone could imagine.
Dr. James now knows that firsthand.
It's so much worse because there aren't cameras inside the hospitals. You don't see the human suffering.
So through an interview with us and Instagram videos recorded while in New York, she shared her eye-opening experience to drive home how dangerous and deadly COVID-19 is.
And what are your emotions? What are your feelings as you're walking into that hospital for the first day?
As I went in, it was just patients everywhere from wall to wall, and they were all connected to oxygen. And they were stacked in the hallways, and I walked around a corner and something that used to be maybe a storage closet had been cleared out and made room for patients. And I turned another corner and there was another room that had been cleared out and made room for patients. So it was just extremely overwhelming.
But she jumped into work in the ICU department with the reassurance the hospital had proper personal protective equipment. Plus, Dr. James believes she had COVID-19 earlier this year and has recovered.
So I'm getting ready to go around. I would say as an ICU physician, it wouldn't be abnormal for me on an average day to have 10 to 15 patients. 20 would be a stretch. So in this environment, they were having 20 plus patients per doctor every day without a day off for about 4 weeks.
She was one of the hospital's first visiting ICU doctors to offer its staff some relief.
It's really loud down here.
After weeks of working nonstop.
So I'm 3.5 hours in, and basically I'm not doing some hotshot critical care medicine at all. This is basically like the worst, sickest patient you would have in your ICU, except everybody is that sick.
And there wasn't near enough room in the ICU for patients.
We have 50 patients on ventilators, I think, and we have 20 or so beds in the ICU. So I was making rounds on patients on the floor on ventilators.
Dr. James spent a lot of time on the phone with family members not allowed to visit and connected patients with loved ones during their final hours.
I left my iPad in the room, and a family was able to call in different relatives, and they were able to say prayers and have a virtual visit with their loved one before he passed away.
While there's been many sad, heartbreaking days, as a doctor, she says she's never cried at the end of a shift until this.
Because if you could see what people in medicine are dealing with right now, when you can see rows and rows and rows of people who can't breathe.
Then she says you would truly understand how critical social distancing is in the fight against COVID-19.
I'm concerned as we reopen the economy and people get moving again, there's probably going to be another surge. So it could last through the end of the year in some format.
What would you say, Mollie, to someone who calls you a hero?
It is not heroic. Definitely, this is just doing my job and just taking care of people.
Right now, this humble hero is back working in a different New York City hospital and will return to the front lines as long as needed. Claire Kellett, News 4.
Dr. James says the biggest needs in New York City right now are ICU and ER nurses as well as respiratory therapists. She also says she's grateful for her family, friends, and her St. Louis area hospital for helping her navigate difficult times.